Hi everyone, happy Women's Day. If you are in South Africa, my friend Cindy and I, we wanted to just compile some powerful messages to celebrate Women's Day in South Africa, and I know you will be blessed by what our panel of speakers have to share. And I have my own message too about Women of Valor. So, Women of Valor, that comes from Proverbs 39. And I've always loved that lady in Proverbs 39. Maybe not because of her homemaking, because I don't have that gift of homemaking. I love my place, but I've been to other women's houses and it's just so amazing how they've put so much care into every little detail. But I always loved Proverbs 31 woman for her entrepreneurial spirit and her wealth creation abilities. But yeah, that comes from Proverbs 31, the topic of today's video message series. And I just want to read this verse 10 from that chapter, which I really love, from the Passion Translation. Just open it up here. It says, "The radiant bride. Who could ever find a wife like this one? She is a woman of strength and mighty valor. She's full of wealth and wisdom. The price paid for her was greater than many jewels." So, what does that word valor even mean? Well, in the English dictionary, it means great courage in the face of danger, especially in battle. But we often use it also to describe boldness and strength of the spirit. And so, in our context, we're looking at a woman who stands firm in her faith, even when things get hard. She's a woman who fights for others with love and conviction. She's a woman who shows courage in leadership, motherhood, purpose, and calling. And she's a woman who chooses truth and hope and grace even when it's costly. And I love all those definitions. They certainly inspire me to become that woman of valor. And I want to tell you though today that, like me, some of you guys know my story, but many of you might have gone through things in life that have tested your faith, that have made you shrink back, that maybe made you hide yourself from the world, or you just, you felt defeated, you felt hopeless, you felt all alone. Whatever that season was, you've made it to the other side. You've come through that season of pain. You've come through the valley. And you experience God in that place of your pain, in that place of your suffering, in a way that you would never have experienced Him on the mountaintop, right? Or in a time of joy and fruitfulness. Well, if you are a woman who stood firm in her faith in those hard times, who had to fight for others with love and conviction, maybe you fought for your family, your loved ones. If you are a woman who showed courage in leadership, motherhood, purpose, and calling, because it takes a certain courage to make tough decisions, to make decisions that not everybody's going to agree with, but you're doing it for the good of your home, your community. It takes bravery and courage. And if you're a woman who's stood for truth and hope and grace, even when it's costly, maybe at the workplace you had to stand up, maybe at your children's school when they started teaching certain things, you stood up for the truth. If you've done any of these things, then you are a woman of valor. This is not a dream woman or a biblical figure that you aspire to. You are her. You are a woman of valor. And I absolutely love how Jesus treated women in the Bible. Every time I read an interaction between Jesus and a woman, I can feel His heart for her. I can feel His love and compassion for women. Oh, I just got triggered. Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Now, I want to read Luke 8, verse 10, because I want to make you aware of something. No, sorry, 8, verse 1 to 3. Jesus ministers throughout the land is the title of the chapter. Soon afterward, Jesus began a ministry tour throughout the country, visiting cities and villages to announce the wonderful news of God's kingdom realm. His 12 disciples traveled with him, and also a number of women who had been healed of many illnesses under his ministry and set free from demonic power. Jesus had cast out 7 demons from one woman. Her name was Mary Magdalene, for she was from the village of Magdala. Among the women was Susanna and Joanna, the wife of Chusa, who managed King Herod's household. Many other women who supported Jesus' ministry from their own personal finances also traveled with him. Now, it's often depicted that Jesus was surrounded by men, the disciples, but Jesus was also surrounded by women, and that is one thing that I appreciate from the Chosen series, whether you agree with it or not, but it shows that there were women that traveled with Jesus and also who supported him financially. Women were a part of Jesus's traveling company. It's right there. Jesus didn't have a men's only ministry. He didn't have, men's weekends away, men's gatherings. No, his heart was for men and women, and he gave both of them access to him. Now let's jump over here to Mark 15, because this is after Jesus passes away on the cross, and the writer of Mark makes a very good observation. So after the Roman military officer who was standing right in front of Jesus saw how he died, he said, "There is no doubt this man was the Son of God." I mean, that on itself is a whole teaching. But I want to focus here on verse 40 to 41. Watching from a distance, away from the crowds, were many of the women who had followed Jesus from Galilee and had cared for him. Among them were Mary Magdalene. She's named by name quite a few times in Scripture. Mary, the mother of Jacob and the younger, and Joseph, and Salome. Many other women who had followed him to Jerusalem were there too. So these are probably the women that had been traveling with him to all the different regions of Israel, preaching the gospel, performing miracles. They heard his teachings from the mouth. They received the word from him, and they were there until his very last moments, when the disciples had scattered and abandoned him. So I just want to tell you that you are a woman who's loved by Jesus, and you have direct access to him. He wants you in his company. He wants your closeness, your nearness, your intimacy. He wants relationship with you, and no man is standing in front of you and Jesus. You have full direct access to him. Now let's talk about the woman with the issue of blood. We're still talking about Jesus's interactions with women. Now this lady, she had been bleeding for 12 years. And now, according to Jewish customs, she was considered unclean, which made her an outcast in society. She wouldn't have been allowed to go to the temple. She wasn't even allowed to touch people, because if she touched them, then they would be unclean, and then they would have to, wash 7 times or whatever the crazy ritual laws were at the time, so that they would be clean again. So people avoided her, and she was to avoid people. She knew that. But she dared to touch Jesus' hem. She dared to touch him, knowing that it would make him ceremoniously unclean. But instead of raging at her and judging her, Jesus turns around and he calls her very sweetly and affectionately. He says, daughter. Guys, I'm getting triggered giving this message. But that first word of that whole sentence, even before he declares her healing in her body, he calls her daughter, and just that one word is so rich with his love and empathy for her and what she's probably been through the past 12 years, being a complete outcast in society, being judged and not even having any human touch. And he calls her daughter, and that's his heart. And I want to encourage you to go and read John 8 as well, because in John 8, there's a woman who's caught in a tricky situation. And I've always wondered why the scribes and the Pharisees who caught this woman in adultery didn't also bring the man that she was committing adultery with. Like, why did the judgment have to fall on her? And the judgment was hard, it was death. I want you to go and read that after this and really meditate on the amazing way that Jesus handles the situation and responds to them, because it's absolute brilliance and it reveals his heart. Okay? That's your homework. Just because of time, we are gonna focus on John 4, where Jesus has a conversation with a Samaritan woman at Jacob's well. Now, in those days, Jews, Samaritans, no way. There was beef between the two. That didn't bother Jesus from having a conversation with her, right? Him being a Jew, she being a Samaritan. And also, she was a single woman, and he was a single man. And normally a single man and a single woman wouldn't be caught together talking in public. Another social barrier of the time that didn't bother Jesus, that didn't stop him from engaging her. And Jesus also gives her a word of knowledge about her life, about the fact that she's had 5 husbands and the man that she's currently with is not her husband. More shocking facts about this woman's life. Shocking facts that don't seem to bother Jesus in talking with her. And he reveals to this woman that he is the Messiah that the Jews and the Samaritans are waiting for. And this passage where he says that is considered to be the most direct and open declaration of his messianic identity. And he did it, or he revealed that to a woman. So I hope you really start to understand now the value that woman has, that Jesus has for women, the absolutely high value that he has for her, whether it's a woman of valor, whether it's a virtuous woman, or whether it's just a broken woman. He values us women so much. He loves us so much. And this lady at the well, she was known to be the first evangelist because of her testimony, and she ran back to the town and she shared it, and many in her village were saved and received Jesus as the promised Messiah because of her testimony, because of the way he engaged with her and loved on her and revealed himself to her despite everything, all the social barriers and all her background and who he was. So maybe you're a woman who's been stuck in shame, who's been living outside of society. You feel like an outcast, or you've been living under this yoke of sin, or you're just living in a place of brokenness. I want to tell you about my Jesus, who loves you, dear woman, daughter. He loves you so much, and he's the one that can really set you free from whatever you are, whatever's oppressing you, whatever you are living under. He can set you free from that. He's the promised Messiah, and the words that he speaks to you are, daughter, I love you. be free, go and sin no more, have a fresh start of life. You are loved and accepted. And yeah, I believe that's his message for you this Women's Day, or for this particular series. And I hope I was able to just portray the high value that he has for you. Okay, I love you, and happy Women's Day. God bless.